Hi, I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning, and thanks for joining me today. We are going to be taking a deep dive into blending boards. It's a blending phonics fluency packet. This is a popular resource. I used it all the time in my small groups, and it works really well for whole groups as well. So I'm excited to show it to you. I have the resource here. I've already downloaded it and opened it up. So we're going to be walking through it together. I'm also going to be taking notes as we go. I am doing a series of videos right now of taking one resource at a time and doing these deep dives and coming up with a list of activities you could do with that one resource. Basically, all the different ways you can use it and differentiate it for your classroom. Maybe you're going to be using it just the way it's intended traditionally, or maybe some of these ideas are going to spark some new energy into these activities. I chose this because it was really popular. It was something that I used and found extremely effective in my groups. I also chose this because it is one of the forever resources in the Word Work Club. The Word Work Club is, you can find out more about it at my Positively Learning blog, and I'll be sure to link it below. The Word Work Club has 9 forever resources, and these resources are like pretty big, and they're intended to be like universal. It's very similar to this style, all of them where you get one resource, but you can use it in multiple ways. Then, in addition to the forever resources, you also get monthly resources, and those switch out every month. They kind of correspond with the forever so that you are planned, ready, saving time because you don't have as many resources to deal with. You have just exactly what you need. That is why I'm choosing this one as well. If you have any questions or if there's another resource you want to see highlighted, please let me know in the comments or send me an email and I can move that one up the list. All right, so these are blending boards and there are 200 pages. I have it opened up so you can see what it looks like. There's 200 pages, but actually you're going to get 400 pages in this packet. It's the same 200 pages in color, the same 200 pages, the same words in black and white, because some years I used one, some years I used the other. So going to our list, you can choose to display these. If you have the technology, I as a special educator did not have the technology, but gen ed teachers did, and so you could display these. And if you're displaying them, I noticed that the color made it a lot easier. So when we displayed it in our gen ed classroom, which is perfectly fine, it was all in black and white. And I noticed that my students were having a hard time visually accessing it. It was kind of like getting jumbled, especially if it's like projected high on a smart board and my students are at the carpet and like sitting in the back row. They just were kind of like not tracking it as easily as they could. But with the color lines really did help quite a bit. So these colors do not signify anything. It's not like blue is the short U sound or anything like that. They are more just to visually organize the page. So if you're displaying these, I would suggest using the color ones so that all students have equal access to it. I did print out the color pages as well and just put them in sheet protectors in a binder so that I could use them in my small groups. The exact same words are in black and white. I'm going to go back to this page. We're going to use this one as an example. And the black and white ones I would often print in my groups, print these and give my students their own individual copy. So it's whatever works the best for your students and your groups. So regardless of which one you choose, they all follow the same format. They have 4 lines of words in isolation, and each line has about 4 to 5 words on it. And then the last line features that same spelling pattern or the focused phonics skill, but also throws in some sight words to create a sentence. So these do follow a K through 2 scope and sequence. I've already put them in order for you. However, you could just mix and match them. You need to pull out a certain phonics skill to match an I.E.P goal or the curriculum you're using, you can do that. Or if you want to print out the whole thing and just put like digraphs before blends, whatever you need to do, it's easy to do. So now I want to show you exactly how we used these. There are 200 pages, so we used them daily. Let me catch up here. We have the display, we have the black and white, which is easier on printing, so I would use those in small groups. We did them pretty much every single day. Again, there's 200 pages, 180 days of the school year, so we used them often enough that it became a very big routine. And the one thing we always started off with in our routine is I would ask a intro question, which served as a hook. I would display the board, whether my students were like looking at them individually or up on the smart board, and I would ask, what is this board all about? Or, you can paraphrase it for your students. And it was an opportunity for them to talk together, which was like, I was always looking for more opportunities for partner talk, turn and talk, and that they would be trying to figure out, like, what does this board have in common? Like, why are we doing this one? I will mention that these boards were at my students' instructional level when we used them in our group, because we were really using them for like phonics and application of phonics skills. If you're using them for fluency, then you'd be probably choosing an independent level. They might be able to answer this intro question a little easier. I will be very honest. My students mostly couldn't answer it, but it was okay because they were talking, they were thinking about phonics, they were using their language skills, social skills, all things that are so important. Um, I would always start with that question, though, regardless, even if I did not think they were going to get it. Many common answers I would get is like, they all have an M, because they would say M at the beginning, or they all have an A or an O. And of course, I would like listen to all answers, and then I would ask them to like tell me more, prove it. They'd be like, well, this one has an M, and this one has an M. Oh, this one does not have an M. And so that's okay. We would work on it. We'd give like whatever appropriate amount of time, maybe like 2 minutes to talk with their friends and see what they come up with. But it was a chance to practice our language skills and our accountability talk, which we used a lot of sentence stems where I taught. And it also gave me a chance to like learn more about my students' thinking. But we would get there to the point where we'd notice all those E's, and we would notice that there is a long vowel sound spelling with the silent E. Okay, so the next thing we would do is we would start reading. When we do multiple reads, I think the more reading of these words, applying our skills, the better. So I'm going to call this one read number 1. And because this is an instructional level, this is not necessarily going to be something my students can just read, but it's a great opportunity for guided practice. I do a lot of I do, we do, you do. So this is a guided opportunity for modeling. I'm going to be doing some thinking aloud, guided practice, and so on. And we might just tackle one line at a time. Another thing we do, and you can either like do this before you read, after you read, during, we highlight. We talk about these phonics sound spellings. It's a lot of like questions like, what do you notice? I call them like the phonics talks, just like our math talks or our number talks. And I'd be like, what do you notice? And so we would highlight maybe the long vowel. We annotated our silent E, magic E patterns by crossing out the E. Some curriculums I know like draw the arrow from the E to the long vowel, like gives the power to the vowel, and so on. And so those are things that we may go through and highlight, probably one line, then read it, the next line, then read it. We probably would not highlight the whole thing. I find that when my students are kind of left just to highlighting, they like highlighted everything. And I did not necessarily want that. The other thing I will give a hint that I learned, of course, you can use markers. Highlighting markers is super engaging. They were a little too engaging for my students. Things got too highlighted. So I kept a container of yellow crayons. Yellow crayons are still fun because they were my materials and not their everyday crayons that they were using. So they were still excited, but maybe it didn't get like as exciting as using a highlighter, which was great because we needed to stay focused. So as far as number 3, reading number 1, reading the first time around and highlighting, those kind of got combined a little bit. After we were done doing that combination, we were ready to read again. And at this point, I'm using observation to determine if it is time for individual turns. Now, individual turns were pretty exciting in my group. We had a very silly song about individual turns, and so it had a lot of clapping and tapping and pointing, and it was fun, and we all got excited, and we were, first grade. And it always ended with like individual turns, and then it would be like a student's name. And so that was exciting. And they would be choosing a line. So there was student choice. This is especially fun if it was a colorful display, because it'd be like purple, whatever their favorite color was. And then often you can add like a little extra engagement, like if they use trackers, whether it was witch fingers, flat, finger lights, or whether it was one of my pointers that they got to use, then they would be reading. They would choose a line and read. We would all be giving sparkle and shine as they read, and we would be following along with our eyes. So instilling good habits. Now, as you are pulling these small groups and you're getting these opportunities to read, and remember, I'm doing this like every day, the routine stays the same. So you're not spending a lot of time relearning that. You're spending more time focusing on the decoding and reading. This is a great time to get some progress monitoring. If you follow me, you knew I was going to say that. Remember, I said that there was 4 to 5 words on each line. It's a great way to get it easy. Data point, because you can just grab 3 out of 4 words, 75%, and so on. I would just probably focus on like 2 students at that time. If I'm focused on getting a data point for every single child, I feel like I might not be focused on the right thing. Like maybe there's like somebody that's not following along over here, but I'm like busy taking data. It happens. But I would probably, because we do it every day, I'd probably focus on 1 or 2 students at that session, and the next day focus on 1 or 2 different students. And that way everybody would be getting like at least 1 read per week with me that I'd be tracking. Okay, so we've been talking about how to really focus in on the phonics skill, really work on like decoding, applying our phonics skills to read. These are also just a great resource to use for word lists. And we use word lists for everything, but especially for dictation. I'll say dictation. Dictation. Dictation, I would not necessarily do this in the whole group. It can be done. I've seen smart boards like gen ed teachers where they can like cover a word. They'll verbally give the word and then they uncover the word on the smart board with like some tool, and that you can have everybody can check their work. I don't tend to do dictation in the whole group as much because I can't like get a chance to see how everyone is doing. And in the small group, I find it really effective because I can see how they are working through the sound spellings. Are the initial and final sounds getting swapped? That's good information for me, knowing where I can like intervene and help. So we did use these for dictation, where I would just be using the word lists in my own binder, verbally giving that to the student, and they'd be writing on dry erase boards. You could do it on paper, like do 5 words a day or 4 words, have like a little half-page paper, or use like notebooks, and that would be a great work sample as well. Okay, now one thing, I don't know if you've noticed on this page, there's other things going on this page, and maybe your students are noticing it when they're doing the highlighting. They may notice there's some initial blends. There's capital letters. That's a great opportunity to ask. You can ask, why are those capital letters? Why is that a capital and that one's not a capital? One answer might be, oh, this is at the beginning of a sentence. I'm like, okay, but this one's not. And then of course you can have a conversation about our capitalization and that we capitalize the first letter of our names. So there's an opportunity for ELA concepts. There's also an opportunity for additional phonics skills. And this one, I don't know if I would go there or not, but there's the soft C at the end of the word pace and in the word space. So that's something that you could go there or not. You decide. All right, we talked about ELA concepts. I want to go back to this packet and show you there are 200 word lists. And what I've done is I created the page numbers to line up between the color sets and the easy print sets. So if this is page 226 in black and white, then page 26 in color is going to be the exact same page. So the first 200 match the next 200. It makes sense when you look at it, when you print it out. Whoops, there it is. Okay, so what I had to do is I had to put the table of contents all the way at the very end so that it didn't mess up the page numbers. Now, I have gotten feedback from teachers before saying like, oh, I love the packet. It would be better if every page had a page number. And I think, yes, it would. However, I want you to be able to mix and match it. So that's why I did it this way. Okay, here's a look at the table of contents. I know it's very small to see on this video. I am going to be sharing a link where you can get this and print this out today. So this is going to be available to you. This is the first page of table of contents, the first 100 pages, and you can see it follows like 2 short A's, 2 short E's, and so on. And then we get to mixed practice. Same thing with the long vowels. We see them one at a time and then mixed, and then moving through those words. On the second page of the table of contents, around the 150 page mark, we start moving into more word lists that are focused on ELA skills. So there's pages for contractions, prefix, um, common nouns versus proper nouns. Remember, we just saw the word Steve and Jane. Verbs, compound words, and then we also move into categories. Months of the year, days of the year, color words, number words, even thematic words like autumn words, winter words, and so on. I'm going to backtrack a little bit on this. Oops, let's see if I can do this a little bit faster and show you another set of words, and then I'll catch up on our list. All right, we talked about the ELA, then the thematic and the categories, and at the very end of the packet, I did put a few fluency boards that you could use, especially for progress monitoring, although you can use it in your instructional small groups as well. There's a lot of pages in here. There are some that are just alphabet, and so that would be a great warm up. Mixing up the uppercase, lowercase, and so on. There's some that are just numbers for number fluency. And then there's some, if I can get to it, it's just the like sound spellings, just the different chunks. So catching up really quickly, we have ELA concepts. Just a few of them are contractions, compound words, parts of speech. These are all word lists that you could use exactly how we've been talking about in your small groups, or maybe you're just going to use them for another activity, focusing in on that specific skill. Additional phonics skills, and then we have some extra fluency boards, and those fluency boards are like alphabet, numbers, and so on. And then we had categories and thematic. That was like the days of the week or like seasons or holidays. So we have all of those. Now, I did talk about using these every year. There was one year that I remember we were adopting a new curriculum, using it with like fidelity, so we couldn't like, there wasn't a lot of wiggle room there. But these blending boards, I knew they were successful. We'd used them for years. Our families loved them. We loved them. They were great. So there are also times where you could just send these home. I was at a school that we did send home homework packets, which is like, it was a non-negotiable. I know there's a lot of feelings about that, but we sent home the exact same packet for all 160 families. So as a special educator on that team, I definitely like wanted to like insert a couple of pages and like flip them out. And these were one of the ones we did. We did these blending boards. I know parents really liked them just to be able to have like that list of words ready to go that they could use how they wish at home. And my students kind of liked it too, because it was like having a teacher board. They could like play school and work with it too, whatever works. And then the last thing, number 12 on our list, we didn't even talk about using these for fluency. I loved using them for fluency when we got to like the alphabet and the numbers and so on. Many of the phonics ones, I just was not in a position to use them for fluency as much because my students they weren't ready. It was not at a level that they could do. We were still using them like for the phonics focus, instructional, digging into those with the highlighter and the multiple reads. But of course, these would be great for like setting up a fluency station or progress monitoring. Whew, that's 12 things. I was just hoping to get up to 10. I would love to hear what you think. And I did promise you that you could get your own table of contents. So I'm back over here looking at the packet at Positively Learning TPT store. And if you hit this green button right here and click on that, it's a little bit easier. Let's wait on this for a moment. It's a little bit easier I find, to download it and then open it. But what you'll see in this little packet is there's a list of the table of contents, just what we talked about. There's that. So you can print these out and have these ready today. There's also 2 pages, and I did one in a color page, and then I used different words for one in a low prep page, a black and white ink page. So there's 2 pages you could already use right away with your students, and you can see that those have different skills on them. So again, that is at that green button. If you go to my store and look at the Blending Phonics Fluency packet, I'll put a link down below, and you press that, you'll be able to download those today. I will also put a link to a blog post that talks a little bit more about how we use these blending activities, some of the ideas we talked about today, and then maybe some new information as well. Well, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to stay tuned and follow because there's more videos coming up, and I hope they are helpful to you. All right, thank you.